Mhm.
All right, and here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, podcast peeps? How you doing? Glad you're back. And you just keep coming back. We keep changing things on you, and you keep coming back. So we appreciate it. I hope you guys like the new style, new format, new looks we're doing out there. And we would love your feedback too. If you have some feedback, some topics for us, because this is the way we're going to roll from now on out on My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. I am Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Shaw. So we have been doing it a little bit differently, for the podcast, the last few podcasts, Dan. So I know folks at home have probably been wondering what's going on. And today we got a special broadcast or podcast that we're going to be doing. We're going to break it up, and we're not going to neglect our fans at home with the mailbag segment. We're going to jump into some mailbag questions and knock out a few of those on today's podcast.
Yeah. Obviously, we are switching it up a little bit. Now, no longer have to do 2-hour shows. Obviously, we couldn't stand each other for that long. Brandon and I, we don't like each other, so we just couldn't handle it. So now 30-minute shows, and that's what we're dealing. That's what we're going to deal with, and we still get the viewers' questions and special episodes now with just mailbag questions and a whole variety of topics. So I'm excited about it, and now after 30 minutes, I don't have to see you anymore, Brandon.
Yeah, but hey, I don't think you've ever looked better than that intro now on the podcast. Looking sharp, Dan Shaw.
That is true. I'm getting modeling gigs left and right now because of you, Brandon.
So that's the way we're going to roll. Shorter podcast for you folks at home, but keep submitting questions like you always do. Keep submitting topics for us, because that's going to be bigger than ever, because we're going to do more topics for you, cover more content, and you don't have to sit through a 2-hour show. So appreciate you for joining us. And today we're going to do those mailbag questions, just like Dan said. So on this particular podcast, as Dan mentioned, we got a variety. So we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. Yes. We got a question that refers to game 1 of that Cleveland-Boston series. But now we've played 2, so this question gets a lot more interesting. But we got that. And in case you didn't know, sports gambling was passed through the federal courts now, allowing states to determine whether or not they allow sports gambling. So big topic this week. We'll talk about that. Also going to talk about the Toronto Raptors. You know, they fired Dwayne Casey, to me, much deservingly so, after getting swept by Cleveland like that. He just looked lost. So they need to hire a new coach. We're going to talk about who those potential candidates may be. We're also going to talk about one of Dan's boys, Dez Bryant, yet to sign on the team. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll hear from some of our favorites here on the podcast. If you're playing fantasy baseball in our league, they're not really your favorites right now because they're doing pretty well and cleaning up. But Nick and Judy Pertins are back. So we'll talk about all that on this podcast, coming straight from you guys, the mailbag questions. And can't wait to get into it. We're going to bring in Orlando Torres in here to help us, because that last question that Nick and Judy throw out there is really for him, and it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I hope he better say yes to this question, and to kind of tease it a little bit. I think it would be perfect for the show, because I'm with the Pertins. I'm not believing in Orlando's fantasy baseball success. I don't even think he knows what a ground rule double is. So maybe we can ask him on the show and figure out. But
tied for the best record in the league.
Yeah, no, I know. Less points than me, but yes, tied for the best record. So
5-1.
Good for him. Good matchups. Matchups.
While we're waiting for Orlando to join us and jumping into the first mailbag question, talking about the Boston-Cleveland series, I just want to kind of recap with you. Dan, did you see the NBA draft lottery last night?
No, I refuse to watch it, mainly because what are we really watching? We're watching what the NBA decides the NBA draft is going to look like. So I don't even watch it. Don't watch it.
Well, I was very disappointed, as you might guess. I don't know how you finished with the second worst record in NBA, and statistically your odds were greater to get the 4th pick than a top 3 pick. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But Grizzlies get the 4th overall pick. And to me, that's disappointing because, as we were talking about off camera, and I think we've talked about before, to me, there was tier 1 of NBA prospects, and that's DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, and Luka Doncic. To me, that's your top tier, your three top guys for sure. Then you dip down into some lower tier guys like your Michael Porter Jr., Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., and some of those guys. So now the Grizzlies are in a really tough position because you got to try to pick the best prospect out of the second tier of guys. I rather would have just had Bagley, Ayton, or Luka Doncic and just took my chances. So now you have to even play matchmaker and guessing game as to which one of these guys, number one, will stay healthy, Michael Porter Jr., and number two is going to be an asset and fit into your team. So it's a guessing game, and I don't like it. I don't like how it worked out at all. Orlando Torres is here. How you doing, bud?
Hey, how's it going? Pretty good. How about yourself?
We're doing great. Did you catch the NBA draft lottery last night? Well, you probably don't even care. You probably haven't cared about that ever in your lifetime because the Spurs are never in that position.
Yeah, no, exactly. But no, I didn't. I was too busy. I decided to put it on, but I had someone text me, letting me know what was going on about the Suns getting the first pick and stuff like that. So pretty much what Dan said, I was watching the Cavs and Celtics game and just minding my own.
Well, I know you've kind of reviewed the questions. We're going to save the best for last for you. We have a question from the Pertons. I know you checked it out. So we'll get to that. How you feeling about that, though? Don't you feel, I guess, just honored that they're including you in making demands and throwing out requests over the fantasy baseball season, which you've never played fantasy baseball before. Now you're in the thick of it, man.
Yeah, now I'm in the thick of it. I didn't think I was going to get this far with Nick and Judy, or I should say with Nick. But it's getting pretty interesting. You know, this is carried on from football or on to baseball, and this has been a pretty long-going feud, as you would say.
This is the first league that Nick and Judy have joined us in, and I don't know that I like it. I don't know that they'll even be invited to the football league. Because
I'm going to invite them. I love it. I love getting messages from you, Brandon, with random trade proposals that the Pertons constantly make for you, and it brings joy to my life. So I like it.
I also love defeating both of them in fantasy. So football's even better. So enjoy and bring them on.
They do talk the trash, and they do send the trade proposals. That is for sure, which they even incorporated that into their question. But, hey, let's jump into those mailbag questions. The first one comes from our man, Antone Bite Yo Ass. But here it goes something like this. Okay, let's put this nonsense to rest. One game don't mean shit for the Celtics winning. LeBron said so himself. You think he's going to have 15 points again? Hell no. Don't mean shitty shit. Cavs still going to win. Nerd Brad Stevens will get you one, maybe two victories, but talent gap between Celtics and LeBron is real. J.R. Smith about to go off. Who agrees the Cavs aren't in no damn trouble? Real talk. Anton, bite yo ass. Well, we're even one game forward, Anton. So, I don't know. Everything you just said loses a whole lot of credibility just one day later. Dan was even asking me, hey, let's do the podcast on Tuesday night, because once this game goes down tonight, we're not going to be able to talk about this. And he was right. And nobody wants to talk about this because I've been telling y'all, the talent gap is real. The Celtics have a team. Cleveland does not. They're carrying one. And LeBron couldn't have played more perfect than he did in the first quarter. I mean, damn, he had 30 in the first quarter. He played great. He had a triple-double. So the talent gap is wide here. I'm not saying that this is going to be a sweep by any means. But to me, this series is over because one team is clearly better. Indiana took them to 7 games in the first round. Toronto was a joke. That's why Dwayne Casey got fired. Boston is for real. They're winning this series, no doubt. And as far as J.R. Smith going off, let me play this for you. Now that right there, guys, did you watch that beforehand, Orlando? I know I kind of sent it to you guys, but did you have a chance to watch that video of LeBron going off on JR?
Oh yeah. It was a mess. It's crazy.
That was
hysterical. That
was hilarious, and the conversation may have even went something like that. So I don't know, Antoine, when this J.R. Smith going off is going to happen. Maybe it's one game in Cleveland at home, but it ain't happening so far. So no, man, the Cavs are in trouble. It's over. They're not winning this series. They're just not good enough. And I knew at halftime Brad Stevens was about to make some adjustments. That nerdy Brad Stevens, well, he went into the locker room at halftime last night and he adjusted some things. He even started playing Greg Monroe. And it turned around. So, and Al Horford hasn't even been a focal point of the Boston offense yet. He's clearly capable of dominating if they choose so. But Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, those dudes are for real. And to me, it's a mismatch. It's a mismatch. Dan, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I still have faith in Cleveland. Basically, Boston did their job. They won their 2 at home, and now it's Cleveland's job to win their 2 in Cleveland, and hope to steal one either Game 5 or Game 7. So I'm still on the Cleveland train. I think LeBron is going to reach his 9th consecutive finals. It is.
It would be 8th. It would be his 8th straight.
Well, he'll probably get to 9 because they're going to get it this year and next year. So,
get Trae Young, right?
Exactly, Trae Young. Well, I don't even think he's going to stay in Cleveland, but that's for a topic for a different 30-minute show. I still don't see him losing. I mean, J.R. Smith, Antoine, I mean, that looked bad for you. He was 0 for 7 in the game last night. Didn't look very good. Obviously, had the flagrant foul at the end of the game. He will not be punished by the NBA, which I guess is good for Cleveland, or maybe not, because he can't hit a shot. But he'll heat up at home. I do think that Cleveland will win both of these games to at least tie it up, and then we'll see. It's a best 2 out of 3 once that happens. But I'm not so sure that, I'm not crowning Boston the way you are, Brandon, although Brad Stevens is coaching his hiney off. So props to him. And yeah, I mean, they definitely have some players, but none of them are LeBron. So I'm still sticking with it.
But is the eye test not telling you Boston is the better team here? I mean, they just flipped the switch last night. Cleveland was winning by close to double digits most of the first half. I think the halftime deficit was maybe 7, but LeBron was playing his ass off. Cleveland was looking very good. They were possession by possession, really taking advantage every trip down the floor almost, not really turning it over, playing well. And then it didn't even matter. Boston still won by 13. So the eye test you're not even sold at the eye test is telling you, yeah, Boston is clearly the better team.
I give that to home court advantage in these first 2 games. Let's see in Cleveland what happens and kind of reboot. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't look good. Chemistry kind of looks a little messed up. In the broadcast last night, Jeff Van Gundy made a great statement that was kind of like the Cleveland teammates are giving each other more eye rolls than a 30-year-old married couple, and that was kind of hit home with me a little bit. But I think they're going to be able to get it together. I still have faith. I'm not ready to just say LeBron is dead in the water yet. I think we've seen too many times where he's able to to muster victories himself. And I think at home, at least, he's going to be able to do that. Whether it does in Boston is going to be the question, but I think this is going to be an elongated series.
And you know me, I'm not a LeBron hater. I like LeBron James. I think he's the baddest man on the planet right now and has been for a long time, but he can only do so much. He had a 42-point triple-double last night, and they still got beat by 13, and I don't think home court means a thing for them, and not in this particular series. I don't think that home crowd in Cleveland is going to make a bit of difference when it comes to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They have no fear. They have no fear at all. And they play like it. And the shots Jason Tatum was hitting last night, woo, that kid is, man, they made the right pick in Boston last year when they drafted him. I think 3rd overall. So, right choice. Orlando, what are you seeing in this series so far?
Yeah, I'm not going to count out Cleveland just yet, but I mean, I totally agree with you. The chemistry for Cleveland last night was horrible. I mean, but this is something we've been seeing for a long time. The stuff in the locker room, this is nothing new. Unfortunately, I mean, that's pretty hysterical. It's pretty sad when you think about it, how this is, nothing new for Cleveland. A lot of teams go through it, but I'm not going to go ahead and count on LeBron just yet. I think Boston did a good job. I thought Cleveland was going to go ahead and steal game 2. I want to see what happens if Cleveland comes back and wins 2. I want to see how Boston responds to that. I'm not going to give Cleveland those 2 games because Boston is playing himself, but I just want to see how Boston handles this on the road and going forward. And they're carrying that momentum, 9-0 at home. Or 8-0 at home in the playoffs, whatever it is, and I just want to see them carried on to the road and Because I mean, besides LeBron and a bunch of guys, I mean, this is a guy who's a team who's been there before. So I want to see how they react to it. So I still think it's going to be a pretty long series. I'm not ready to write off Cleveland just yet.
Yeah, 9-0 at home so far in the playoffs this year. Best start of the playoffs by any team there's any Celtics team since they did that in 2008 when they won the championship. So man, I don't know, Antone, man. I'm sorry we didn't get to this question last night because my answers would have been a little less ferocious to you. But no, this is over. So one more opinion, one more answer from you guys, Orlando. You actually think Cleveland has a chance and is capable of controlling 4 games and getting 4 wins out of this series out of the next 5 games?
With LeBron there, yeah. I mean, this is a guy who's done it before. I know the situation, but with LeBron there, they go back to Cleveland. They, go back to reset mode. They're down 0-2. Yeah, I'm still going to give Cleveland a chance. I'm not going to go ahead and write him out. They're down. He's done it before, against the Warriors. And I know this Celtics team is looking good, but I'm not going to write them off just yet. I'm still giving Cleveland, as long as they have LeBron there, a chance.
Okay, Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question. You honestly believe that Cleveland is capable of controlling 4 more games and winning 4 out of these last 5 games?
Yes. And when you're talking about Boston's home playoff record this year, look at their away playoff record. The Bucks pushed them to 7 games in the first round because they couldn't win away from their home court. So don't write off Cleveland just yet.
All right, there you go. So sorry it didn't work out for you, Antone. So bite my ass. But let me ask you about this real quick, guys, before we end this particular topic. The flagrant foul from J.R. Smith last night. I had a buddy, Jeff Hill, reach out to me. I know you guys have probably buddied up on Facebook a time or two. A high school buddy of mine, Jeff Hill, reached out to me today and said, what's your take on that J.R. Smith non-flagrant 2 call last night? To me, I think it was about the dirtiest play you could possibly have in basketball in today's game when you're pushing a defenseless guy with 2 hands, blatant push, when he's up in the air underneath the goal. Very lucky that it didn't turn out worse for Al Horford. But just being a flagrant 1, is there anything into that as far as the league not wanting any suspensions here? Wanting everybody at full strength because the ratings are going to be high anytime LeBron and his team is involved. So do you think that had something to play in it? How did you feel about that foul, Dan? And I know you mentioned that it may have even helped Cleveland, and that was kind of my response too, that I really probably wouldn't have been a bad thing for J.R. Smith to have been suspended for a game and see how you do without him, because basically he just took 7 possessions away from you last night.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like the play. It definitely was dirty, and I 100% think the NBA didn't suspend him for 2 reasons. Cleveland, they want Cleveland to advance to the NBA Finals, even though Boston is, Celtics, a big market. The players aren't marketable yet, like LeBron James is. A Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're not household names yet. So I definitely think the NBA wants to try and see a LeBron NBA Finals again. And then in addition to that, I don't know. I lost my train of thought there. But the NBA is going to try and make an impact in not suspending him, but it should have been definitely a lot worse than a flagrant 1.
And I'm just really lucky that Marcus Smart didn't throw a blow, because I think missing Marcus Smart would have been much bigger deal for Boston than Cleveland losing J.R. Smith. So I'm lucky that Tristan Thompson saved Boston there and held back Marcus Smart from throwing a punch. Orlando, what'd you think about that? I'm not sure the plays come any dirtier than that.
Yeah, I thought a suspension was coming or something. I mean, I just kept thinking, man, if that was someone like Draymond, he would have been ejected or suspended. But
and that's the last time you saw a big suspension or late season playoff suspension like that is when it affected Golden State 2 years ago, and it affected them because Cleveland won the championship.
Yeah, and I mean, and you like to see kind of hard play, and especially like in playoff basketball, because these guys are out here fighting for it all. But yeah, a play like that, defensive guy pushing him from the back, I didn't agree with that, and I thought they handled it poorly. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it should have been suspension, but J.R. Smith isn't making much of a difference for Cleveland anyway.
When I'm just surprised that they came back, it really spent relatively a short amount of time looking at it compared to other things that they review for 7 minutes. And then they come back with double technicals. I mean, you're more interested in the confrontation than you were the actual act of the foul. Sometimes I just don't know what the thought process is when the officials go to review these things. I think sometimes they miss points and they're overlooking things or bigger points. Y'all are too caught up in the act and the back and forth. And I don't know. I think they were probably focusing on the wrong thing. Forget the double technicals. It was a little bit of flare up, no punches were actually thrown. Let's concentrate on the act that actually happened. And I believe it was clearly a flagrant 2 on J.R. Smith, which probably would have helped Cleveland if he was suspended for game 3, but that's another story. So appreciate the question, Antone. Although, Cleveland in some damn trouble, bro. Let's move on. Sports gambling now legal, says Greg Umber. And in the entire United States, are you happy about that? Any details on how it will work? Thanks, guys, and enjoy the show. Thanks, Greg. I'm excited for it now. It's not completely open now because it's going to be in the hands of each individual state and depending on where you live. So for me, I'm in Arkansas. Let's be honest. This is a Bible Belt. This is a very conservative part of the country. I actually live in a dry county, meaning they do not serve alcohol at all. Although the city of Jonesboro, they have clubs, but you can't, there's no liquor stores within Jonesboro city limits, within Craighead County. You can go to restaurants and buy alcohol, but the county is losing money because everybody's making short trips to other counties and buying their alcohol. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. They finally came around to a lottery system, been great for the state of Arkansas as it has for any other state, as far as affording scholarships and things of that nature. It's been great. They've even gone so far now recently, and I don't know how this compares to other states, but it used to be, Dan, if you buy lottery tickets, scratch-offs, or anything like that, you had to walk in a convenience store or whatever, pay cash. Now you can even pay with a debit card, which makes it more open and more, acceptable and available to everybody to do. And I'm sure they're making even more money because of that. So not open everywhere. I think it's just a matter of time. Now it's just going to be up to these sports leagues on how they regulate it within their sports league so it doesn't contaminate their leagues. But nothing wrong with this at all. Nothing wrong with this at all. I think it's a different revenue stream for each state if they choose to take advantage.
Yeah, I think you guys know I'm a big sports gambler, I guess you would say. I like to make my fair share of wagers, and I guess you could technically say I do it illegally, although it's through an offshore account, so you can never catch me, United States government. But ultimately, I love this. I'm a huge fan of it. I know New York State is going to be one of the first 3 states most likely putting in the initiative. So, I'm definitely a big fan. My first thought actually went to how can I profit off of this besides obviously making bets. But finding out what you had said, Brandon, is basically it's going to be state-run. My first thought was, how can I open up a storefront and start becoming a bookmaker of some kind? So that's where my head went, but I don't think I'm going to be allowed to. I don't think it's going to be just the private citizens. It is going to be state-run, whether it be casinos or different things. And not only that, but the sports leagues are also profiting off of this because there's going to be a tax on it. It was called a specific type of tax, but basically they were going to get a percentage of every single bet, the sports league, so they're going to profit off it even more as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm heading to Atlantic City in August for my bachelor party, and it's definitely going to be up and running then. They're trying to get it up by Memorial Day weekend, so I'm looking forward to heading to New Jersey and taking part in that right away too.
Well, when it's going to hit for most states who choose to comply? By the opening of college football season, guarantee you that everything will be up and running. That's probably our next big kickoff. Wouldn't you say, Dan? You got some baseball. You may even have World Cup throughout the summer this year. But by college football season,
football is going to be the biggest thing. You could just look at Vegas. That's their heavy betting time is during football season, college football, NFL. So, yeah, I definitely think you're going to see maybe them take a couple months now into the summer to get it ready and set up and fully functional before football season starts.
Going to be a lot of states not wasting any time. There's going to be a lot of states where it's held up in state legislature for a year or so, trying to determine. But what do you think about it, Orlando?
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this too. Obviously, here in Texas, it's pretty conservative. It's San Antonio, not so much, but the sports and stuff, there's petitions and stuff that I've signed along with other people, like in small groups who would send to the governor, whoever it was, to make the stuff legal. And, and finally it is. And we kind of knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. So I'm actually very excited about this, and hopefully it won't be that much longer till we could all start putting in wagers and making in money or whatever this is, because this is fun, and this is good news for everybody.
Here you go. Can't wait. Thanks for bringing it up, Greg. We're happy to address it. So we'll see what happens from there, state by state. Let's move on back to the NBA. Talk a little NBA. This one comes from Tilly Dent. Who should Toronto hire as their next head coach? I want to see it go to Jay Kidd. So that's from Tilly Dent. I assume Tilly is a Toronto fan, but Jason Kidd has got to be up there in the running. I know him and Vinny Del Negro were in the running for the Suns job. Before that went to Igor Korsakov, I believe. I'm just going off memory there. I don't know, but interesting thing about that, the guy who the Suns just hired was Luka Doncic's former Real Madrid coach, I believe. He was a former coach of him. So look out. I'm not exactly positive. The Phoenix Suns have got a hard choice here with this number one pick. Going with DeAndre Ayton, who I think a lot of people agrees the consensus is probably number one, the hometown kid as well from Arizona, or the guy who the new head coach is very familiar with Luka Doncic, who could be the next phenomenon, European phenomenon in the league. So I don't know. Tough question. Tough choice there. Maybe not for the Phoenix Suns, but thought that was interesting. So I found some notes on Toronto here. They're entering the offseason with 12 players under contract, $126 million on the books. That's the fourth highest projected payroll in the NBA, and $25 million over the protected cap, of course, at $126 million. So the team has no draft picks this coming year. So coming off the way they ended in the playoffs, being swept again by Cleveland, it's a tough decision. But I got one crazy name for you. This name is Jerry Stackhouse. He is currently the coach of the Toronto G League affiliate, the Raptors 905. They went to the finals. They're currently in the finals this year of the G League playoffs, I guess. I don't really keep up with it. I don't know what channel that's on. I don't know if that's on the NBA network or not, NBA TV. But anyway, they're in the finals of that, and they won it last year under the tutelage of Jerry Stackhouse. A lot of you guys remember Jerry Stackhouse, former North Carolina great, and Sixers great. He played for a few teams, I believe. But Jerry Stackhouse. But some other names out there, Monty Williams. Becky Hammond. Is a team going to get a team – Orlando's familiar with Becky Hammond, but is a team outside of the Spurs ever going to give her a shot to be a head coach? I think that day is rapidly approaching. So then, of course, Jason Kidd, Vinny Del Negro, who got turned down, or the Suns passed over those guys. So that's just some of the names I had pulled up on the list. Dan, what you think? What might be the best fit? Would you trust Jerry Stackhouse to start running that team?
Get out of here, Jerry. I will give you another name that's maybe a little out of the box, probably won't happen, but has ties to general manager Masai Ujiri, and that's my man, George Karl. Bring him back one last time. I think the way his offense would kind of work in Toronto, kind of more fast-paced than what they run, I think with their guard play, I think it would be a match made in heaven. And Masai Ujiri is the guy who hired him in Denver. So I like that pairing. Whether or not it's ever going to happen, probably won't. There's been reports that he's going to get blackballed because of the book that he wrote, Furious George, where he named names and did things like that. I read the book. I didn't think it was bad. It was a great read. But that's the name. I'm only giving that name. Maybe Mike Budenholzer. He's another guy that I would think might be a nice fit. But I want to see George Karl head north of the border.
Yeah. Budenholzer is top on a lot of the available coaching lists. to as well. And going back to the Becky Hammon point, how would you feel about Becky Hammon taking over your Spurs one day, or do you think that a team is going to give her a shot in the near future?
No, I think a team is definitely going to give her a shot, especially with everything going on. It's just a matter of when or who's going to get her. I think she's interviewed for a couple of teams before. I know she's been brought up for taking over as the Raptors coach as well, but I'm not too sure when that is. It could be this, coming up season that we see her as a head coach for another team, or if she doesn't remain leaving the Spurs. If she does remain with the Spurs, I mean, it may not be a couple more seasons until we see her taking over as a Spurs head coach.
Any other names that you might want to throw out there as to who you might think?
Yeah, I was going to go about off what Dan said, and that is Mike Budenholzer. I mean, and you said it yourself for Toronto. They're over the cap. They don't have any draft picks. If this is a team who's getting tired of being pushed around by Cleveland in the playoffs, or want to take the next step, why not take a guy who's already seasoned, who's had successful seasons in Atlanta? Last season was pretty horrible, but this is a guy who's he's hit 60 games before, not that long ago. I think in 2014. They've had some successful playoff runs now. So you got DeRozan there, you got Lowry there, you Valenciunas there. You got some guys there. You're ready to make that push. I think you need to go after a seasoned coach instead of a coach who's going to be more built for like a rebuild mode.
Yeah. Also, some other big names that are out there. You got your Van Gundys. Both of them are out there after Stan was recently let go by Detroit. Mike Brown is out there. Frank Vogel, former Indiana coach. Monty Williams, former coach. We know for him from his day in Oklahoma City, tragically passed away. Jay Wright, I mean, is he going to stay in Philadelphia? Philadelphia and Villanova, which is what I would do. I think he's got it made, but his name's going to come up in a lot of conversations. That would be unique. That would be a unique fit there if he would decide to go there. So that's just some of the names that might be heading there. And I'm not sure why we haven't really heard much more at this point. I guess it was just a week or so that Dwayne Casey was fired, but I'm surprised we haven't heard more about interviews, or at least I haven't heard anything about potential interviews there in Toronto, but they need to figure that out. Well, maybe they don't, because they don't have any draft picks. There's no urgent need for a Toronto coach to get in there and start figuring out who he wants to add to his team. So, but that's just some of the names. Appreciate the question, Tilly. Let's move on. But let's talk about you guys, one of you guys' favorite players. Dan even went as far as to name his female cat after this guy. But former Cowboys great, Dez Bryant. This one comes from Sweet Baby Ray. And I want to know, is Sweet Baby Ray, he's the one that makes the barbecue sauce? Y'all know Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, or is that just a Southern thing? Orlando, you know about that?
Oh, yeah, definitely know. But it probably is a Southern thing, so I'm not too sure if Dan knows about that.
What? I know what Sweet Baby Ray's is.
Okay, good. I didn't know. I just wanted to throw it out there. I meant no disrespect. But this is from Sweet Baby Ray himself. When the F will Dez Bryant sign, and will Witten be right about the Packers? So I told you guys on the podcast a couple weeks ago that at Green Bay, I just think he should go to an elite team. He's not even 30 yet. I think he has some good football still ahead of him, but I think he needs to play with an elite guy where he's not the top receiver and just could be a nice, veteran supplementary piece like what New England does all the time. And I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would love to have an athlete like that. So I know, first he said he wanted to stay in the NFC East, maybe to kind of stick it to Dallas twice a year. But the Giants have pretty much said, no, you don't want to go to Washington and play under Alex Smith, Dez. You just don't. And Philadelphia probably has not much interest. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. Turned down a multi-year deal with the Ravens. I mean, I don't know. I just think he thinks he can do better. And then we have the current rumors to the Packers, as Sweet Baby Ray mentioned. So, Dan, let's start with you. What do you think?
It would be very prophetic of Jason Witten if he were to call this one. I guess you too, Brandon.
I called it before Jay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Jay Witt's got some new hair. So I don't know if any of you saw that. Good for him. Yeah, I mean, Tony Romo calls plays before they happen. Maybe Jay Witt calls signings before they happen. And Green Bay went out and they drafted two receivers, Equanimous St. Brown from Notre Dame and Jamon Moore from Missouri, two very unpolished, raw receivers, so they're not really going to be playing too much as the rookie year. So it definitely makes sense. A sleeper team that I have is,
and that shows that the Packers are looking for a wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, losing Jordy Nelson in the offseason, you still have Devontae Adams, a very aging and not as good Randall Cobb. There was Geronimo Allison from Illinois who was drafted a couple of years ago. He kind of came on late. So they definitely have some bodies, but, not of the experience of Dez Bryant. So I think it definitely makes sense. A sleeper team that I'm keeping my eye on is the Miami Dolphins. They lost Jarvis Landry. They still have Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, but, that doesn't really scream, wow, wide receiver core. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get closer towards training camp, maybe a training camp body or injury happens. And then you might see a team pony up and sign Dez. He's not going to sign what he's going to want. He's going to want $9 to $10 million a year on a 1-year deal. I would think he's probably going to have to sign for $4 to $5 million tops. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. But I wouldn't expect him to sign anytime soon. Throughout the entire summer, maybe August is when you might see him put pen to paper.
And why rush it? He has no need to rush it. Yep. Someone's going to sign him. He's going to land on a roster. And one of the reasons I saw that the Baltimore Ravens deal fell through is because, like you just mentioned, Dan, he is looking for a 1-year deal because he's looking for a 1-year deal to show his worth and then maximize maybe another 2 or 3 year deal. Exactly. So he's not looking for any kind of long-term anything. And I just imagine the money didn't add up for what he thinks his expectations are or what his worth is there in Baltimore. And let's be honest. I mean, do you really want to play for Baltimore right now? Because the best case scenario, you have either Joe Flacco or Lamar Jackson, a rookie, trying to get you the ball and get you money and win you a big contract. I don't know that I would do that either. So what do you think, Orlando?
A team I would like to see Dez on. I would like to see him go to a contender. He's not that old, but he's definitely getting up there. I think a team like the Saints would be a pretty good fit, playing alongside Michael Thomas. They didn't get Graham. They didn't get Nelson. I think, with Kamara, then with Mark Ingram came back, they got a pretty good, solid team. Dez has that size. He doesn't have to be the number one there. There's not a lot of pressure on Dez there. But I think that would be a good fit. I'm not too sure how that'll fit or if that happens. Another team I think will be a good fit. But kind of awkward. The quarterback situation would be the Seahawks playing alongside with Doug Baldwin. I know they lost Richardson and Jimmy Graham. But when you got a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who's scrambling the whole time, it might make it difficult for a guy like Dez Bryant, who likes to run the deep routes. So those are two teams that come to mind when I think of Dez, playing for a contender or a team that could take him pretty far into the playoffs.
Dan, have you had any word or seen anything? Is it if New England is even remotely interested at all?
I haven't. But to go completely off topic, because we were just talking about it, the Bucs just named Mike Budenholzer their head coach. Completely off topic.
The Bucs
just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, a former spot of Jay Kidd. So
crazy. But no, I haven't heard anything on the Patriots. So just wait, Des. Chill, hang out with your mom. I don't know. Work out, stay in shape.
Yep.
Keep throwing in barbecues.
Yep. No need to rush it. Now he's finally free of the Cowboys entourage that he had to carry around with him, his own personal security team. Was that even a thing in the last year or so?
Orlando?
Nah, I don't think so. If it was, I didn't see much about it, the way it was early on.
He grew out of that. Good for him. All right, sweet baby Ray, appreciate it. All right, it's time for Nick and Judy Pertins. Let's finish this thing off with a Nick and Judy question from the Nick and Judy Show. Lando, you are surprising Judy and I, but we highly doubt you'll be holding the title when we hit September. Beginner's luck is what we call it. Let's make it interesting. You win the league, I'll name our firstborn Orlando. If we win the league or finish better than you, you have to do a show with Nick sharpied on your forehead. But don't tell Judy. P.S. Brandon, you'll never win anything with your constant rejection of trades. Okay, first, let me just give my compliments to the Nick and Judy Show for having an outstanding first 6 weeks to the fantasy baseball season. Your fantasy baseball prowess is greater than mine, Nick and Judy, and I'll tell you why I'm rejecting these trades. I told Dan before. I don't know if they're good or not. And plus, you were hitting me up before the season even started. I'm not keeping up with it enough to know. And I think it's too early to tell anyway. Baseball's a long season. And I think you even bamboozled Dan with a trade for Shohei Ohtani, which Dan may be regretting now because he's gone 500 since making that trade. So I don't know if it strengthened his team or not. But you guys are doing great. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. But Orlando's doing great now. So if my memory serves me correctly, there is 3 5-1 teams in the league. Nick and Judy for sure, Orlando for sure. Those are your top tier guys. Myself and Dan Schalk are 3-3. I had a guy throw a no-hitter last week and got 76 points off one outing, and I still couldn't win. So I'm kind of discouraged about my team long-term. Feel like I'll make the playoffs, but I don't have the strongest team. Maybe I do need to make some of those trades. But Orlando, is this a bet you're willing to make? Are you feeling that confident in your fantasy baseball game?
I mean, look, if anything, there's a lot of pressure on them. Okay, and I'm not even going to go as far as saying I'm going to win the league. I mean, this is my first time playing. I mean, I'm off to a pretty good start. I mean, anything could happen. I'll take it for what it is. Definitely paying more attention to this than what I did in basketball. I know you and Dan could definitely agree with that. But if he's going as far, I don't know how serious Nick and Judy are about this. I don't even know if Judy knows about this, saying that if I win it all, they're going to name the first child after that. If they're willing to go that far, sure, I'll take them. What I have to do, I'm not worried about finishing behind Nick if that's the case. What the worst I have to write is Nick on my forehead. I mean, the fact that there's a chance that they have to name the first child after me, and then they have to get that story where they got that name from. It's like, yeah, we named it as some guy who beat us in fantasy baseball. I'm taking that deal all day.
That will be on ESPN one day. That will be
I want to see the birth certificate, everything. I want to see it set in stone if that happens.
I got a twist to it. How about this, Nick? Maybe this will smooth it over with Judy a little bit. Make Orlando do it with lipstick. Instead of a Sharpie, make him do lipstick. A nice pink, bright lipstick. Like Nick, loving some Nick. And then Nick, how about Nick on one cheek, Judy on the other? in the show across the forehead. Let's make it more interesting. But I'm out of this conversation. You guys are the ones doing all the fantasy baseball winning, so you guys are the ones that are in control here. But Dan, what's your confidence level? Is Nick and Judy or Orlando, either one of them, going to win the fantasy baseball title?
No, they won't.
I could admit that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously going to win. My team is still very strong. The Ohtani deal is looking better for me as the time progresses. My only mistake was giving up Barrios. But yeah, no, I'll be the moderator or witness to this bet. It'll be on. Let's call it on. It's a go because I just want to see it happen. Whether Nick and Judy name their firstborn that. I guess there might have to be a condition that it's a guy, a baby boy. I don't know if it is or not, but
it could be same sex.
Same sex. Okay.
Orlando. There you go. That's nice.
Yeah. So maybe the Purtons are trying to get away with a middle name, or is this a first name thing? So yeah, I mean, there's some tweaks to work out, but I'll be the moderator of the bet. So you're both finished behind me. That's all I know.
Well, maybe Nick says don't tell Judy because Judy's reaction to Nick saying, can we name the kid Orlando is, hell no, what are you thinking? That may not even be close to her radar. So that may be the part of it from Nick here. But we'll see. That will be interesting. But glad the Purtons chimed in. Outstanding content from them as always. So we appreciate that. But that's going to do it for this podcast. Mailbag questions coming at you. Check out our next podcast. We're going to answer more mailbag questions. Check out the previous couple of podcasts we did reviewing the NBA playoffs. And what else did we talk about? Oh, yeah. Fantasy football rookies. Yeah, see, my mind isn't even there, but we did that for you. Fantasy football rookies in May, giving you some fantasy football value there. So check out those podcasts. Check out all the changes coming to My Fantasy Podcast and MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Check it out daily. for all your content, sports and entertainment. Why go anywhere else? I don't know. I don't know why you do that. But for Orlando Torres and my co-host Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. See you next time, podcast peeps. Peace. All right, that's one. Orlando, if you want to disconnect, and then we'll do the same thing over again.
All right.
Do you have any idea how long that was, Dan? To my calculations, probably a little over 30.
Yeah.
About 40 again.
40 to 45, maybe 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was the NBA talk that was getting us. I think we flew kind of through the other ones, which were
good. But I mean, I don't mind it so much on the front end questions, which I kind of prioritized. Like this ranking the fantasy football, for running backs. I mean, I think that's probably the meat of our conversation for the whole podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Did Orlando go?
I think so.
Still hung up.
Like he's frozen. A frozen thing up there. Can you disconnect him on your end? Do you have that?
I don't think so.
No.
I can mute his audio and whatnot, but I can't erase that avatar. No big deal. All right. Is you ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Round 2. This will be easy because I know we're going on at 6:28, 6:29 here. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, podcast peeps. This is another edition of My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. It's the mailbag question podcast. We're going to answer more mailbag questions. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to our last mailbag podcast. Keep submitting your mailbag questions. We're not going to stop that, not never. And also keep submitting your topics for our podcast. This is the way we're going to be doing it from now on. So shorter shows, shorter podcasts, topic specific. So you tell us what you want us to talk about, and we'll keep dishing out the content. You'll see more of My Fantasy Podcast. I'm Brandon Reed. My co-host is Dan Schalk. What up, dude?
What's happening, Brandon? It's a pleasure to be on with you, and got my kitty to my right and Brandon right in front of me. I'm ready to go.
I don't know a better way to spend a Wednesday afternoon, honestly. So
yeah, it's actually nice in Buffalo today, so I'll take it. 70 degrees.
I was wondering about that. So now we're kind of in the time period where I'm probably jealous of you, Dan, because we skipped spring altogether. We broke a record Monday, 96 degrees, like the hottest day of that day in May forever. 96 degrees. We're well into the 90s already, Dan. Summer is here. Summer's here. We're sweating.
Yeah, I have beautiful 70-degree weather. I cut down a tree today in that 70-degree weather, so I did it all. Now I'm on the podcast. Cut down a tree and join you.
All in a day's work. Sometimes it bees like that. Today's podcast is going to be interesting because we have a wide variety, a plethora, you might say, of mailbag questions. We'll bring Orlando Torres in here in just a second as well from myfantasysportstalk.com to give his input on all this. But first, we're going to start out really big, Dan. Really, really big. What we do is fantasy on myfantasysportstalk.com and My Fantasy Podcast. So a lot of fantasy here. And this is a great question because I was just thinking about it just the other day, is if I had the top 2-3 pick in the fantasy football draft, which running back would I go with this year? It's time to start thinking about that. Which ones are going to be the home runs? So we got a question about the fantasy running backs. Now we're asking just to rank the top 4 here. So that's one question from our boy John here. We'll get to in just a second. Then we'll jump into some baseball talk. Talk about those Atlanta Braves. Did they just come out of nowhere or what? Leading the NFC, NL East right now. And I don't know. Dan may tell us whether they really came out of nowhere or not, but we'll break them down. And then we want to talk about some fantasy baseball sleepers. We're deep into your fantasy baseball leagues now. So we'll talk about that. And also got a question here for maybe not so much for Dan, but I know Orlando will be into this one, and I'm into it a little bit. But we're going to be talking about the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view and Ronda Rousey, another UFC crossover into WWE. So look forward to that. And then we're going to end it with just some nice summer fun. I'm not even going to give too much away about that. Just some nice summer fun, just a relaxing conversation about summer apparel. So do not miss that. Our boy Orlando Torres is back with us. What's up?
Man, I was gone for a little bit. I already forgot how to work this. How's it going? Good to be back with you.
What's your shirt about all there? This is May 30th, 1970 or something?
A little Jimi Hendrix, a little
Ooh,
back to
nice.
hippie days.
What is it say 1970?
Yeah, 1970. There you go, right there.
Okay, so I'm going to really date myself here, but that was almost exactly 8 years before I was born. Yep, believe it or not. Yep, May 31st, 1978. Yours truly. Another legend came into this world. So that was way before my time. But I remember Jimmy. I can hear Jimmy. I listen to Jimmy. I know Jimmy. How's things in San Antonio?
Going good. We're already hitting the hundreds. I'm pretty sure you know about that. So, yeah.
Funny you said that. I was just telling Dan, now it's when Orlando and myself are jealous of Dan's weather, which we hadn't been really probably since, I don't know, August, but 6, 7, 8 months. But now we're jealous of Dan because Dan's just sitting there at 70, whereas I myself here in Arkansas, we broke a high temperature record, as I was telling Dan a second ago, of 96 on Monday. So I know you got to be right there sweltering as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think we had 102 earlier. I was like, holy God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It is so hot. And then it's dry heat, so that's even worse. Yeah.
Yep, my poor grass and shrubs and plants, they need water, and they're just not getting it. It's so hot. So, all right, let's jump into this thing. So we're going to kick it off today in our mailbag podcast talking about fantasy football. So this one comes from John Janot. How would you rank these 4 running backs heading into fantasy football 2018? And he gives us a list here. Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, and David Johnson. So let me start off real quick. I think I pretty much know where me and Dan are going to differ here, but I'm going to start out with Ezekiel Elliott because the Cowboys do have a stellar offensive line, and I'm not sold on Dak being the quarterback to pass it 25 times or more a game, which he should not really, in my opinion. So I think Zeke is going to be right back in there and have a great shot to win the rushing title for sure. Feed Zeke. And I mean, that's what I would do. Number 2, I'm going with Todd Gurley just because I think that Rams defense is going to keep the ball in their offense's hands so much. And he's going to have great opportunity. I think he really had a bounce back year this last year, and I don't see that going anywhere. So I like Todd Gurley a lot. It gets a little bit trickier here. I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell just because he keeps doing what he does. And I know Big Ben is not getting any younger, so he's not going to be willing to look to sling it a whole lot. And I just like Le'Veon's style. I think he's pretty hard to defense with his stutter step style. And I like his game a little bit more at this point than David Johnson, who comes in 4th for me, because a lot of questions with David Johnson. I wrote down a few of them. Too much unknown for me coming into next season. Is he really elite? He had a great year before last, but is he really elite and he's going to bounce right back? I don't know that for sure. Will the wrist injury linger? I don't know. New coach Steve Wilks and his scheme. How is that going to work? I don't know. Running behind a fullback, which could be great for David Johnson, which they're going to bring back. I believe they signed the fullback from Atlanta, so he's actually going to be running behind a bruiser now. So I don't know how that's going to work. Could be great. I think it could be great, but I don't know how that's going to work. Having to carry too much of the load in defense of stacking the boxes on him, because he's either going to have Sam Bradford, Fragile Sam, or a rookie quarterback as his quarterback and an aging talent pool when it comes to the wide receivers and weapons on the outside. So those are some of the questions I had about David Johnson, but Johnson and Bell could probably flip-flop, but I'm definitely going Zeke and then Gurley is 1, 2. Dan, what you got?
Let me just remind folks, I am the reigning fantasy football champion of our league, myfantasysportstalk.com. All we do is fantasy sports, and I just win. So you're going to want to listen to my rankings here.
How many titles you got?
fantasy football? I mean, in my lifetime or recently?
Oh, no. Come on, keep it real. Keep it real, dog. Keep it real. You got as many as I do.
All right, so my rankings. I actually have David Johnson number 1.
I figured as much.
It's a wrist injury. Who cares? It's not going to impact him at all. He's going to
miss the whole season. He missed the whole season. That's serious.
Not a knee injury. It's not a knee. It's not impacting his performance being a running back. It's a wrist injury that might impact him eating cereal in the morning. It's not going to impact him
carrying the ball.
He's going to get 30 touches a game he's going to average more touches than anyone on this list. And he's going to be the Cardinals offense. I don't care about stacking the box. They're going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw it to. They're going to throw it to him. He had 80 receptions 2 years ago when he played the full 16 games. He's their number 1 receiver, in addition to being their number 1 running back. He's number 1. It's not even a question. Well, Orlando's just trying to mess with it right now, I think. But I don't know. I don't know what he just wanted to do that. He must have been angry that I didn't have my number 2 running back.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't too. The Cowboys boys, I know. I knew you were going to have Johnson further up the list, but I didn't expect you to have him number 1. Really.
He's number 1. He's the number 1 back. Number 1 overall pick. He was last year, and then he got hurt. He's still going to be this year. No change there. I do have Zeke number 2. The addition of Connor Williams is only going to help that rushing attack. Dak, I'm not sold on him, but let's hope this third year he can really make an impact in the passing game where defenses don't have to stack the box, because they still did each year. Dak's rookie year, he was able to beat the stacked boxes. Last year, he wasn't. And then obviously the suspension for Zeke didn't help either. But Zeke's number 2. I have Todd Gurley 3. The Rams' offensive line still isn't great. I'm not sold on it. And I'm not sold on Jared Goff. He always has his head coach whisper in his ear walking up to the line. I need to see more of Jared Goff doing it rather than Sean McVay. So I think you're going to see more stacked boxes in LA than you will in Arizona. Not only because of the quarterback position. I'm okay with Bradford and the most pro-ready quarterback year 1, Josh Rosen. So I'm not too concerned about that. I have Le'Veon Bell 4th. He's aging. He's on another contract year. Are the Steelers going to keep him? Are they going to use him like they should? James Conner is waiting in the wings, who actually got a lot of run last year in certain instances, more than I was anticipating him to get. Le'Veon, he can't stay healthy. You mentioned David Johnson's wrist injury, but Bell has constant lower body and shoulder issues, so I'm just not sold on Le'Veon Bell being the workhorse that he sometimes is when he's on the field.
But he's always one of the top rushers, top 2-3 rushers, only playing 12 games. That's the thing. And I don't know. I'm not going to be sold on Arizona. I think Arizona is going to be one of the worst teams in the
I do agree.
Yeah. And I don't. One guy, if you want to keep them from scoring more than 14 points.
But they still have weapons on offense. Christian Kirk is added into the mix. You still have Larry Fitzgerald there. I'm not sold on the offense being bad. The defense is a different story. You lose Matthew. You lose a lot of the pieces that they've lost over time. Calais Campbell obviously went to Jacksonville last year, so that defense is hurting. But I still think that offense is going to be able to be competitive every week.
It's still a tough decision. So let me ask you, you gave your top 4, you ranked those guys, but where's Kareem Hunt on your top list?
I didn't even think about it, but he's not going to be too far behind. I mean,
you're going to put him above Le'Veon Bell. You're a Le'Veon Bell hater. You say
I wouldn't even have Le'Veon Bell on this list of my top 4. That's for sure. I probably wouldn't even have Todd Gurley, to be honest with you, either. I'm an owner of Todd Gurley. Last year, I was a recipient of him helping me win championships, and I'm just not sold on him this upcoming season. He's not going to have that same type of year again. I would definitely have. I would probably put Saquon Barkley ahead of him, and some other guys. I'm definitely not sold on Gurley or Bell being, a top 4 draft pick this year.
Well, and part of my reasoning for Gurley putting him so high, though, is kind of some of what you mentioned, Dan, is number 1, that defense is not going to be on the field very much. The offense is going to have a hell of a lot of snaps, and I don't trust Jared Goff, just like you just said. So I think Gurley's going to get plenty of touches. Now, whether he stays healthy or whether he duplicates his production from last year, that's yet to be seen. But I think the opportunity is going to be there. And based on if he can just build on what he had last year, I think he's in line for a huge year. That defense only got better, and that's scary. And I think Zeke will be right back there again, too. But I don't know. We'll see. But you asked us to rank these guys, John. So that's what we got. That's what we got for you. But still an interesting conversation. We'll start seeing how it folds out when we start doing some mock drafts and see what the consensus is and who people will take. I think knowing that he's going to play a full 16-game schedule, I think Zeke will be taken number one by a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to be scared. I know you said it's just a wrist injury, but you got to carry the ball with the arm, Dan, for David Johnson, and that team is going to suck. So I don't know. Orlando, is Orlando back?
Yeah, no, I was able to see. I don't know if y'all were able to see me. I had a mama calling me, so I just got a new iPad, so it's still connected with my iPhone. So she was doing a FaceTime call, so it threw off the whole call.
Oh, mama trying to join the podcast. Oh.
Yeah, we got Dan Schalk's dad trying to just show us up at every corner. Now we got Mama interrupting and joining the podcast, and Orlando's in. So I don't know. It was a god awful sound. I had to just cut you.
Oh yeah. Oh, see, okay. Yeah, you cut me, but I was able to hear you. So
okay, good.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and throw Zeke one. Just because I think the Cowboys, the wide receivers are a mess. I think there's going to be a run heavy offense. So I'll put Zeke there. I'm going to go with Gurley because I'm not going to count out Gurley. I just from what he's seen, even if it's just catching the ball to the backfield, Gurley I would put right behind Zeke. I'm going to go with David Johnson after that. It was just a wrist injury. I'm excited to see him back, and then I'll go with Bell last. Even that was Bell. I think you could flip-flop Bell and Johnson. I know Dan wouldn't agree with that, but with Bell, as much as he thinks he's hated in Pittsburgh, or if he is, you know what you're going to get. He's probably going to be a headache going into training camp or into the preseason. He's going to have a slow start in the beginning of the season, but once you have Bell, give him a couple weeks to warm up. You already know what you're going to get to Bell, and him alone, I think, could carry your fantasy team for quite a way. So that's how I would rank those guys.
Yep, I kind of agree with you there. I think we're more along the same lines there. I think you really probably could flip-flop Johnson to Bell. It's just a lot of unknown for both of them. But to me, it's just I think Le'Veon Bell's style is hard to adjust to for defenses with his stutter steps. And I think he's always going to be, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a factor. But appreciate the question, John. We're covering a lot of fantasy football in early May for you guys. So I hope you're taking notes and saving all these podcasts. Bookmark the site and keep referring back to them. Although our opinions will change from now to fantasy draft time for sure. Let's move on and talk a little baseball. This one comes from Mooney Russell. Are the Atlanta Braves for real? First place in the NL East, but for how long? So I broke down some of the stats before I turned it over to Dan, our baseball guru, and even Orlando is much more of a baseball guru than I am. But they're third in runs scored right now, ninth in runs allowed. Only 8-8 in their new park, though. I mean, what the hell is that all about? You open up a new park and you're barely playing 500 ball? And 6-4 in their last 10, so slumping just a little bit. They are number one in the National League in team batting, almost in every category that I saw except home runs, which, I mean, they're right there, but pretty much running away with a lot of categories. Offensively, as far as team batting goes, a middle-of-the-road team pitching, but their bullpen isn't really giving up a ton of runs. And their top four guys in their rotation are 15-6 right now. So, to me, Dan, I guess the question you really have to pose is, and you would know much better than I, are the Phillies or Nationals just the better teams, and it's going to work itself out eventually in the long run during a long MLB season?
I look at this Braves squad very similar to my Houston Astros of 3 years ago when they kind of shocked the world. Their prospects started coming up, so you're seeing Ozzie Albies for the Braves, Ronald Acuna, along with some others, get mixed in with some veterans that the Braves have and start to light the world on fire. I don't think they're going to end up winning the division, but I think they could be a playoff team this year. You look at the Astros, they led the AL West 3 years ago in 2015 for most of the season, and then it ultimately fell to the Rangers, losing out on the division but getting a wild card. They did win the wild card and lost in the ALDS. So I see a similar fate for the Braves this year. They have a ton of talent on their squad, no doubt. You just go up and down their lineup with Albies and Acuna, like I mentioned, Dansby Swanson, the first overall pick from a few years ago. And then they sprinkle in the veterans like Freddie Freeman, Nick Markakis, who might get to 3,000 hits before his career is over. The signing of Joey Bats looks phenomenal as he's manning down third base of all positions. And then their rotation has young arms that are just performing. Sean Newcomb is a stud. Remember that name, fantasy baseball-wise. Guys, you can't because I have him on my team, so don't worry about it. But there's names up and down that team that are just performing maybe a little bit sooner than they should. So they are for real. But if there's any team in the NL East that's going to make a run, it's going to be the Nationals. They have the most talent on the roster, probably more so right now with the age and experience than the Braves do. So I ultimately see the Nationals coming up and winning that division, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves make the playoffs this year.
There you go. Yeah, it's a long season. This may start to work itself out a little bit, and you may even have seen that over the past 10 games as they're 6-4 after getting off to a very hot start. But it is a long season, and we've seen it before. But and I didn't even notice that I had a couple of those guys, some of those hot Braves on my team, as Aroldis Vizcaino, were the relief pitchers on my team. Consistent, good numbers pretty much every single night. And Nick Markakis is on my team too. So I appreciate what you guys are doing in Atlanta. What's up with opening a new ballpark though and only going 8-8 so far, Dan? I mean, you got to do better than that.
Yeah, that's a little tough. I would like to see the matchups, maybe the teams that they played. Maybe they played some good teams at home, but I mean, they were terrible last year.
Is that 4 series they've even played it? Is that what it equates to? Maybe 4 series total at home? So, so you've
small
only played 4 teams. Yep. Orlando, what do you think about the Braves? I know you've been keeping up. You're 5-1 in the freaking fantasy baseball league. Do you have any Braves on your team, and what do you think about them?
Yeah, actually got nice. He was actually a waiver pickup for me not a couple weeks ago. He's been really good for me, actually, pretty solid. Kurt Suzuki. So he's been racking up some points. I think he's at over 200 points already, so that was a nice addition. I mean, I've been keeping up with them a little bit. They've been hitting pretty good. Now, Dan knows more this, but with me, when it's early, like in May or June, and you get questions like contenders or pretenders, all I know is that it's a long season. So you have to let this get some time. I think we've seen a lot of teams who get hot early on and they just kind of fade out. And then you have teams that are not so good early on in the season. You kind of see them starting to heat up right around going into July, August, September. So, I mean, I like what I'm seeing right now, but as far as contenders or pretenders, I'm still going to say it's still too early to tell.
Yep. Definitely a long season. But we'll see what happens, Mooney. I got to start winning some home games. They didn't build that brand new multi-billion-dollar stadium for nothing. So got to sell more hot dogs, got to win more games. But thanks for the question, Mooney Russell. Let's keep it right here in baseball and talk some more fantasy baseball. This one comes from the Bullpen Guys. Any solid fantasy baseball sleeper? Saw your article on Suarez and Romero, Dan. Picked them both up. I love you for Romero, but I regret Suarez. Limit of 25 pickups per season, says the Bullpen Guys. First of all, 25 pickups per season? We just talked about how long the freaking MLB season is. This is worse than some Dan Schultz commissionership stuff here. 25 pickups in a long-ass baseball season? You know, they play 162 games. Wow. That's my first problem with that. Geez, you got to make them count. So, I'm too speechless. Steven, talk. Dan, you talk about waiver wire pickups.
I'm a huge fan of limiting moves. I think it actually puts the owners responsible on drafting well. I think in our fantasy football league we have a lot of owners who can't draft worth of garbage, so
it puts it all on.
They need all these waiver claims to try and improve their roster because they're terrible drafters.
It puts it all on drafting, though, especially baseball. Dan, it puts all on drafting.
So I'm in a dynasty league and a keeper league that are very serious, and those at least have 40 and 50 moves each year. So 25, yeah, that's definitely low. Like for our football league, we had 15, 20, 25, something like that. That would like equate to maybe 10 moves in the football season all year. So it's definitely a low number. So My apologies on Suarez. He took another L today, so not good. But I got you, Romero, and he's going to be a stud for a long time. When you're looking at guys out there, I mean, I don't even know if you want to make another move. You probably want to wait a month or two so you don't run out of moves down the home stretch. But I mean, if there's some guys out there, I would like to know the size of the league. So feel free to send a message to the Facebook page, the My Fantasy Sports Talk. Will answer. You can give me in-depth prospects on who's available, your league, and things like that, and I'd happily answer them. But just some guys, like I'm looking at our fantasy league. There's not a whole lot of guys out there that I'm loving. Matt Kemp was a name that I'm surprised he's available. But honestly, it's slim pickings, and we're in a 12-man league in our ESPN format. So I would rather get to know more specifics than give you some sleepers that are available, because they might not be available in your league, and just get your hopes up. But with that limit, I'm with Brandon. That's a little low, 25 per year. I mean, you have until September. We're in May, and you've used 2 at least, maybe more. That's not good.
I'm just glad our league doesn't have limits, because that's really what's keeping me afloat here. Because
I got you, Brandon.
I'm adding 2 new pitchers every day just to get some numbers up. And it still didn't even work last week. But 25 seems ridiculously low. But yeah, looking at our league, and I agree with what Dan said, is you may just want to hang on if you only got 25 until it gets serious, especially depending on your standing right now. What's your record? What kind of moves do you need to make? Are you desperate yet? Because I looked at our league, as Dan said, 12-man league, and there ain't much. And I even declined to make a move today, and I got unlimited. But Brad Miller, John Hicks, that's a couple of the guys from the batting side that are averaging pretty decent numbers. And Bartolo Colon, Mike Friars, Clayton Richard, those are just some of the pitchers. And I think I've had all those guys and dropped them. Those are some of my, replaceable guys that I float in and out. But I don't know that you really have any kind of big sleepers on the waiver wire right now, particularly in our league, that's going to do any kind of thing of substance. You might want to wait till injuries, guys get called up, sent down, DL, whatever, and see who stays hot or gets hot and may stick on a roster before you really start spinning one of your 25 moves. That's tough. Orlando, how did you get to 5-1? What kind of fantasy sleeper advice do you have for the bullpen guys?
Well, my pitching has been off and on. I think my hitters, my outfielders have been really saving me.
Well, let me ask you something real quick before you go on. Are you even making moves, or did you just draft a badass team and you're just letting it go?
I can't say too much about that. I mean, I just kind of drafted what I drafted. If anything, if we could go back, I would have focused more on taking pitchers early on, because now I know those are basically the running backs of fantasy baseball. So, I mean, that kind of hurt me, and that's probably going to hurt me in the long run unless I make some moves. As far as the waiver wire goes, I mean, I picked up a guy like Abreu or Suzuki. I mean, those guys that have helped. But other than that, there's not really any sleepers that I picked up, especially in a 12-man league and so deep rosters. I mean, there's not really, the waiver's kind of dry. So you got to kind of pick and choose and hope, you pick up a guy who could help you at some points. So that's kind of, what I've been doing, and just really relying on who's playing and adding subs and drops and stuff like that.
Yep. That's tough, man. The thing sticks out most about your question, the bullpen guys, is 25 pickups. That's tough. That is tough. That is a strict league right there. So make the best out of it. Good luck. And like Dan said, send us some more info. He'll be more than happy to give you a little bit more feedback, but need more info when it comes to spinning your precious 25 pickups. That's it. So, all right, let's talk a little WWE. This next question comes from WWE Braun Strowman from Twitter. Orlando, can you believe that? Braun is reaching out to us now. I verified, I don't think this is the actual account of Braun Strowman, but
No.
It goes pretty far. It goes pretty far. So anyway, what do you guys think about Ronda Rousey fighting Nia Jax at Money in the Bank? Too soon? All name value with Ronda? What's the deal? From WWE Braun Strowman. So I know you probably keep up with this a lot more. I don't really know that Dan keeps up with this a whole lot, but there's a lot of different ways this could probably go to me right now. Orlando, I could possibly see them letting her have the title for that impact factor. It's Rousey. It's another UFC crossover into WWE, but Nia Jax just got that women's title at WrestleMania, and it was a great story. But what I find a little bit more interesting right now, this second, is that what kind of storyline are you going to draw between these two? Because as far as I know, they're both face characters. You may have to turn one of them heel. I mean, I don't know. But here's the other thing that concerns me is if Ronda is still just like a part-timer like Brock Lesnar is, I do not like it at all. I definitely don't like the title on her because I think one of the worst things that the WWE is getting away with is keeping that title on Brock Lesnar when he's a part-timer and he's not even there. What happened to wrestling, man? The title used to get defended once a month on Monday Night Raw. Now it's not even there. You don't even see the title but once every 2 or 3 months. I hate that. I think that's ridiculous. And I saw something the other day that leads me to believe the reason Brock Lesnar still has the title is because you know who the longest reigning champ in I think the modern era is? It's CM Punk. You know how that ended. So I think they're putting that title around Brock Lesnar and keeping it on him to break Punk's record. Brock being another UFC guy to kind of stick it to CM Punk, who left to go to UFC. So they're like, all right, we'll bring in another UFC guy and he'll break your freaking record. So now I think it's just out of spite because there's no reason for Brock Lesnar to have that title. But are we going to be seeing more of the same with Ronda Rousey at the Money in the Bank? Is she going to win that title and then be a part-timer?
I don't know if she's going to be a part-time. I see reports that she signed on as a full-time performer. Now, obviously as a fighter, she's tremendous. Maybe not so much her stand-up game, but her ground game is pretty good. But as far as in wrestling, she's not really polished yet. She hasn't had that many matches. Her WrestleMania match is pretty good, but I mean, she was obviously carried by Angle, Triple H, and Steph. So it's been a pretty good story, but I do think it's too soon. I don't think she's going to win. There could be a number of factors of how you win this match to continue on the feud storyline. But if they do put the title on her, it's definitely on name value. It's just marketing. That's basically what it is because I don't think she's ready yet. As big as she is, I don't think she's ready yet to hold a title.
Well, and that's the thing. She hasn't even really had much in-ring action yet, right?
Yeah.
She had the WrestleMania match with Stephanie, but that ain't real,
Yeah, exactly. She was carried on. She had 3 other people to help her carry on in that match. So, there wasn't as much pressure on her. But, these one-on-one matches, transitioning from fighting to wrestling is a little bit different. So, I don't think she's ready to hold a title. But if they do, it's just name value and marketing if they do go that route.
And they took a little bit of bad press recently over the whole greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, which it's not that they just left the female wrestlers, which they've been pushing the divas or the women's division a lot lately. If you watch wrestling as of late, it's even main eventing a lot of these shows, SmackDown and Raw, is women's matches. So it's done, or put them on the roster for the greatest Royal Rumble, is they weren't allowed. It's in Saudi Arabia. The female competitors were not even allowed in the country. So they took some heat off of that, that they went that far as to do that. And didn't involve it. So is this a way to maybe make up or gain some even more traction and kind of say all is forgotten?
I don't think you say all is forgotten. Even there were some males, and Corey Graves is one of them who took some heat too, because I know he went into social media and kind of basically said that the company contradicted themselves, which they did. You're trying to start this whole equality stuff and women's movement, and then you go to a place like Saudi Arabia. Nothing against that. It was a beautiful complex. It was an awesome event. I watched it. But the fact that they didn't allow any females, or there's whatever is going on. I won't comment too much about that. That's something else going on. But yeah, I think they contradicted themselves a little bit. I even me and Dylan talked about that. All these females they have on the roster, and they still can't give them their own pay-per-view or their own show or something. I think that'd be pretty interesting to see. They go to a place, Saudi Arabia, where women aren't allowed to wrestle or to dress a certain way. I thought they contradicted themselves a bit. I don't think they could get past that. I mean, that's already done. But I don't think this match is a way to kind of forget about all that. I think it's just total marketing here. You got a name like Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax, people are going to watch just to see. Even people who don't watch wrestling will tune in just to watch Ronda Rousey.
I think it would be a good opportunity for her to compete at a very high level and take Nia Jax to the brink of defeat where the folks think that she's going to win, but let's keep the strap around Nia Jax's waist, is just off winning it off WrestleMania, like I said. And just a great story with Nia Jax, and I think the folks love her too. So I think that's probably the best case, but WWE, they always do a 180 on me from what I think should happen. But like I said, with the whole, what do you think about the Brock Lesnar situation? Though, I mean, I just hate part-timers. I mean, he's not even there. You don't even lay eyes on the belt on your Monday night shows.
Well, here's the thing. There's even reports that he didn't want to be there. He didn't even care about that damn title. He's already told them to give it to someone else, and they are throwing millions at him. I don't know if they despite Punk that much just to have it break that record, or just because he's a household name. Whether you love him or hate him, people are going to tune in to see Brock Lesnar. And I guess that's one thing that WWE has a problem with lately is they don't have a lot of those household names. They're trying to build up Reigns. Look how that's trending. Everywhere he goes, there's people chanting "F you Reigns," or they're just completely crapping on this guy. You got a bunch of other guys who are not getting shots in. The company is a mess. I mean, I still tune in to watch the product, but as much money as it makes, it still has a lot of flaws. The company has a lot of flaws, and they kind of do need to focus more on the wrestling on the mainstream shows. As far as Brock, I don't know how much longer he's going to hold the title because I know he's planning on having a fight sometime this year in the UFC, if not early next year. Dana White even confirmed that. To expect Brock Lesnar back in the octagon pretty soon. So I'm not sure if he's going to be allowed to hold the title while fighting in the UFC. I really don't know with this cross-marketing stuff going on. So, I mean, that's an interesting topic. But I would like to see the title getting taken off of Brock too.
I can tell you this. I don't remember how the timeline stacks up. I think we're probably less than a month before Brock breaks that the title record reign of CM Punk. And I don't know when Brock is scheduled to be in a WWE event again. I don't think that Money in the Bank's not till like June though, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's scheduled. I think he has a couple appearances, but he probably won't have to wrestle again until August, which is SummerSlam. So it might be a while.
So he's going to have the record the next time the title is on the line. Pretty certain is that the timeline works out that way. So then I think you probably lose it. And I really think that's part of the case now. No other reason to keep it on it. But I hate that, man. It just sucks. Like you used to watch Nitro and Raw back in the day. The title, some kind of title was defended pretty much every show. And even the World Championship was defended at least once a month on your main Monday night shows. Now you don't even see the damn title, but they get away with it because it's a new world. It's a new world as far as marketing and merchandising, and they get away with it. So, but we'll talk more about that as Money in the Bank approaches in June. So great question. Appreciate that, Braun Strowman. And don't come after me. Anything you want to do is all right with me, buddy. All right. So let's move on. The next question. Well, let me read the question first. That may make more sense before I tell you who it's from. Sandals or sneakers in the summer? If sandals, what kind? Thong, yoga, biblical, Nike, with socks or without socks? This question comes from Rex Ryan's wet dream. Just kidding. Freddie Orns. So I don't even know where to go with it. I'm going to say this is light summer fun here. And I don't even know what yoga or biblical sandals would even be. Dan, you fielded the question, so throw it back to us. Too.
I didn't know what those different types. I heard of thong sandals, the ones in between your toes there. I hope I'm getting Freddie Orns jiving right now, talking between my toes. But yeah, biblical. There's some other ones. It's the variations of where the straps go. Basically, is what I gathered. I don't know, man. I just wear sandals. I'm not a sneaker guy unless I'm cutting the lawn or doing something manly. I am either not footless, shoeless around the house, or sandals if I have to go out. But it's rare. I only get about 3 months of sandal weather, so I take full advantage. I just have slip-on. I don't know. I get Nike. I don't know. They're actually Under Armour, but they just slide right in. Nothing touches my toes. Keep it away.
Yeah,
keep it away from my toes.
You got to remember, it depends on where you live too, because Dan's wearing 2 pairs of socks and long johns through 8 months of the year. So yeah, it all depends on where you live. Orlando, what's your fashion sense on this question?
I'm a sneaker guy. I mean, in my closet, I got a bunch of Jordans, LeBrons, I have a couple KDs. I haven't bought shoes in the past year. Kind of got a little bit expensive. So I'm more of a sneaker guy. However, lately, before me and my ex kind of broke up, she always told me, you need to start wearing sandals around the house. You need to stop wearing those Jordans around the house or whatever. I said, okay. So I think these are biblical. That's what I'm wearing currently. Is that biblical? It's kind of like
it's not even close to biblical.
That's more than Nike.
That's what I think. That's what I had.
Well, see, then there you go. I'm not much of a sandal guy. I don't even know. I don't even know what the hell yoga is. I'm thinking of a little pose or something.
I can't figure that one out either.
Yeah, so Dan, I'm not much of a.
It's an actual. Guy, so. It is. I mean, this dude knows his sandals. I googled it. Yoga sandals are. I mean, it's a variation of the strap. There's a definition of it. So Google it. Yeah, do it.
Well, to me, I mix it up. I'm not going to say I'm one or the other. It depends on my attire, the event. It just depends. If I'm going to wear jeans, where I might be, how much walking I might have to do. It's both. It's both for me. But casually, yes, I'm wearing a sandal, which I just call flip-flops. I'm not going to go into the degrees. I just call it flip-flops. So currently what I would style if I was going out and not just casually hanging around the house are these Oakley flip-flops right here. I mean, I guess this is considered, it's a thong. It's a thong style, but it's a flip-flop to me. It's a flip-flop. Break it down any way you want to, but these stylish white Oakleys is what I would sport. I also currently have some white Feli tennis shoes that I would sport. It depends. It depends. So I'm not going to say I'm one or the other, but what I can tell you is never good is socks with any kind of sandal. That's the complete dorkiness. That's something you would see in Del Boca Vista Phase 2. It just doesn't belong. So I will say that. So, keep it real. Keep it real, guys. Don't be silly with it. But a little bit of mixture, a little sneaker, a little sandal. But now that it is summertime, we got to start talking about these things and keeping everyone informed. And, you come to us for fantasy advice and fantasy information, but we're not above giving you food advice or even apparel advice from time to time. So we're glad you could join us, and we're glad we can make your day and your week that much better. And now it's time to go online and do a little shopping. Maybe find you some biblical sandals. That's it for this one. Appreciate all the questions, guys. We've changed a lot up on the podcast, My Fantasy Podcast here recently. Going to be changing more things up on the site, so just want to make sure we get your feedback. So, Dan, what do you want to tell the peeps at home about some of the changes we made over the podcast and the site and everything like that before we get out of here?
Yeah, we're doing a little refresh, redesign to the site, and obviously the podcast, shorter episodes, more topics, right to the point. So whether you're catching us on Facebook, on myfantasysportstalk.com, YouTube, iTunes, to some other ones, we're all over. I don't even know where we are half the time, but we're there, and you're listening. So just enjoy the changes, and if you have constructive feedback, criticism, anything, get at us. Our boy Gilly was blowing up a storm earlier, and we love it. So let us know what you think about the shows, and definitely check out the website for all the great articles. Entertainment section's blowing up as usual. So we're keeping it good, and it's going to look a lot better. We already have a video section now up on the site, so you can catch us directly and watch our videos right on the site. So a lot of big things happening. And David Johnson, #1 fantasy running back, 2018.
You heard it right there. What better way to end the show? But on the for real, send us your mailbag questions, of course. We're not going to neglect that. We're going to have mailbag podcasts separately. As you can see, check out the last mailbag podcast that we just completed. And also send your topics to us. We'll cover what you want to talk about. It's sometimes hard for us to know what you want to talk about, so we just make up things. So avoid yourself having to listen to podcasts where we just make up things, and submit your topics and your feedback. So until next time, for Orlando Torres, my co-host Dan Schalk, I am Brandon Reed. Next time podcast peeps. Peace.